He laughs, puts down one of the glasses and offers me his free hand. I take it and give him a grin in return. The handshake lasts a couple of seconds more than strictly necessary, and instead of simply letting go at the end, he slides his fingers across my palm. Ooh, Hunter. Hi my lovelies and welcome to Blind Men. This is, I've got the synopsis here, a parody of spy fiction. Blind Men is a boys' love visual novel that follows a young supervillain as he carries out his first big heist. So we've got visual novel, which is a genre I hadn't really played with before I started this channel, but I'm really enjoying having a go at, so yay, another one. We've got supervillain, who doesn't love supervillains, and we've got more queer content, yay! So, let's go in, Blind Men. I don't know what I'm expecting, but let's do this. Keegan. When I was 7, I was sent to live with my uncle. I had just lost my parents in a car accident, the same one that left the right side of my face disfigured. He did his best to make me feel welcome, but it wasn't enough. Bullied by my peers and ignored by people that were supposed to help me, I didn't fit in anywhere, and I spent most of my childhood thinking that it was somehow all my fault. One day, after I came home crying, my uncle pulled me aside and said to me, "People are fools, Keegan, blinded by their own stupidity. They seek to destroy what they don't understand." I feel like he's getting more and more posh English as I carry on. So that's where he's going, that's where his voice is going to be. He's probably going to contradict me in the next thing saying he's supposed to sound like this, but we're with it now. For people like you and me, we're different. We're better. Never forget that. At that moment, it all became clear. I finally understood what I had to do. I'd follow my uncle's footsteps, and I'd show them. So, what do you think? I'm only missing the essay section of the application. I don't know why the league even asked for one. There's nothing particularly evil about good grammar. I laughed nervously at my own bad attempt at making a joke. The League of Evil is the highest authority when it comes to criminal activity around the world. They can make or destroy a supervillain's career with a single word, and even those that don't answer to them know better than to oppose them. I mean, there's something contradictory about being an evil villain, but having to be part of this special club that sets down rules and stuff, but okay, whatever. We're rooting for you, Keegan. Membership is for life, and vacancies are rare and far and in between. Even getting the opportunity to apply is difficult enough. I'm perfectly confident in my ability to deliver a flawless application, of course, but one can never be too sure. Which is exactly how I ended up asking one of my uncle's henchmen for his opinion on my application. Henchman! Oh, he's tall. It's about passion. Common criminals are a dime a dozen, but being a supervillain requires true dedication. Oh, he's an enthusiastic henchman. He claps his hands together in excitement. I do that. He's almost as enthusiastic as I am about the idea of me getting to join the league, which makes the fact that I have no idea what his name is rather embarrassing. Oh, poor henchman. It's not that I don't care. Wow, that went super posh. Maybe we'll dial it back a bit. It's not that I don't care. It's just that after a while, henchmen just sort of blend together. That's gone so posh again. Screw it. We're leaning into the poshness. During training, we were shown a video of the boss's speech at the Allied Nations. It was wonderful! Half the room was in tears by the end of it. He feels strongly about being a henchman. It's the one about how powerful countries abuse the vote system of the organisation to legitimise their actions, isn't it? I've seen it too, it's really good. It's not for nothing that human resources make all the new recruits watch it. In just a few words, you can really feel what the boss is about. What makes them different from all the other supervillains out there. You don't need to worry so much. Right from the heart and you'll do fine. Besides, you're Sphinx's nephew. It runs in the family, he said so himself, didn't he? Okay, so the uncle is called Sphinx, okay. I groan. Ugh, don't even start. It's bad enough that people think I only got to the opportunity because of him in the first place. The last thing I wanted is for it to actually be true. Getting into the league by my own merits is the only way I'll ever be taken seriously as a villain. By them, and by everyone else. Not to mention, he has this weird idea about how spending all my time down here is not good for me. And it's not something recent either. Because intelligence agencies were always looking for my uncle, we never stayed too long in one place. As a result, I was homeschooled for most of my life. But ever since I finished my high school studies 3 years ago, he's been trying to get me to enroll in college. An actual college, with other normal people. At first, it was just subtle hints, and the occasional comment, which I accepted as his way of showing he cared about my future. However, since last month, he's been bringing a bunch of pamphlets home. He went as far as outright telling me that if I was having a problem choosing, I should study engineering, just like he did. Oh, Keegan, he's just looking out for you. in his own special supervillain uncle way. Speaking of the boss, when are you planning to tell him? I have managed to keep the application process a secret for the better part of a year, but it can't remain that way forever. As proud as it makes me that he hasn't found out yet, I'm no fool. I know that luck has played at least some part in it. Besides, I meant it when I told the henchman that my uncle is my biggest inspiration. His approval would mean a lot to me. The next time I see him, I suppose, it will be better if he hears it from me now, and not from the League after I get accepted. He hates being left out, and considering what I'm planning, he might just have a stroke. Well, that's not good. Well, here's your chance. He's heading our way. What? He was not supposed to come back until tonight. Oh, Keegan. The henchman shrugs. I turn around and see my uncle walking through the door. He's never been a particularly expressive man, but he looks even more serious than usual. Good morning, boss. The henchman salutes him, and my uncle dispenses him with a nod. As he leaves, he silently mouths a cluck in my direction. Traitor. He's trying to help you, Keegan. Come on. You're early. Hi, Sphinx. God, if Keegan's posh, what is Sphinx going to sound like? There was an explosion in the lab. Okay, apparently that's what it sounds like. Don't know where this voice is coming from, but okay. There's toxic material everywhere, and since it would take the cleanup crew a few hours to get rid of it, I told everyone to go home for the day. I look down and notice that his clothes are stained with some kind of black substance. Instinctively, I take a step back. He looks down as well, shakes his head, and waves his hand in a dismissive gesture. This is just oil. I was working on some of my old prototypes when I was informed of the explosion. Anything I can help with, boss? God, so posh! Why am I doing this voice? No, I want to clear up some space in the storage room. I'll get rid of whatever I can't get in working condition. And how many times do I have to tell you that you don't need to call me that? Sorry, I spend so much time with the henchman it rubs off after a while. Among other things. Keegan, what have you been up to with the henchman? Uncle, really? That was years ago and it only happened once. Keegan! As far as I know, only because he got eaten by a shark before it could happen again. Oh, God. Accidentally eaten by a shark, I'm sure. Yes, that time the feeding cage malfunctioned and our perfectly trained sharks decided to have him for lunch instead. What an unfortunate coincidence. The corner of his lips quirks up in an amused smile. I barely resist the urge to roll my eyes. Have you had time to go through the pamphlets? The entrance exams begin next month, so you'll have to submit your papers as soon as possible. I spoke with Madame Mantis. Madame Mantis is an excellent supervillain name. She said that if you're interested in moving to America, she'd be happy to help with anything you need. Ever since she retired, she has amassed quite a bit of contacts in the Board of Education. In fact, if you get everything else ready for before next Friday, she'll personally write you a recommendation letter. Oh, that's nice of her. I've met her a couple of times. She was a proper villain, the kind of woman that never does things out of the kindness of her heart. Meaning that he either asked her for a favour, or she owed him one. Either way, I bet he's only telling me this so I feel pressured into enrolling. I'm glad that you brought it up, because I've been meaning to talk with you about that. You have? Does that mean you've chosen a college already, then? Not exactly. Not exactly. Keegan, cut to the chase. What if I didn't want to go to college? He stares at me in silence for what feels like an eternity. Finally, he closes his eyes and begins to rub his temples. We've been over this before. You need to do something with your life. You do a good job around here, but you can't keep running around with a henchman forever. I think he's trying to keep Keegan from doing something else with the henchman. Wait, just hear me out. The reason I don't want to go to college is because I want to become a supervillain, just like you. In fact, I've already contacted the League. They think I've got a lot of potential, Uncle. They are just waiting for me to submit my full application. When did you even have time to do that? Save it. That's not important. Helping me out and being an actual supervillain are two completely different things. The League's application process is infamously hard for a reason, Keegan. Many people have died trying to impress the council. Oh, damn. Why do you even want to be one? Uncle, please. I've gone through the curriculum of every major college in the world. Several times, actually. They've got nothing to teach me. I could go straight to a doctorate for about every field I'm interested in. Why should I waste my time with frivolities when I could be doing something that actually matters? Education doesn't matter. Ruling the world does. You are the one that always says that people just don't know what's best for themselves. Well, I do. Besides, I've been helping you out practically my whole life. I'm not making an uninformed decision. I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure about anything. Have you decided how you're going to call yourself? I mean, I think that means, what are you going to call yourself? Do you have a base of operations? How about a plan? How are you going to pay for everything? Do you remember the weapons dealer that sold you the parts you were missing for the death ray? Turns out that he also handles mercenary contracts, and he comes highly recommended in that regard. He said that he would lend me one of his bases and some people if I went over a couple of blueprints his scientists are working on. I know it's not ideal, but it would only be for a day or two. After I'm accepted in the League, I'll have enough resources to get my own. He crosses his arms and there's another moment of silence. If you are serious about this, I won't be the one to stop you. But you are going to do this properly. Call the weapons dealer and tell him that you won't be needing his services anymore. He'll use my lair and my men. Aw, thanks, Uncle Sphinx. We'll draft a contract, and if anyone asks, you rented them. Thank you, Uncle. I promise I won't disappoint you. Of course you won't. Now come, tell me more about your plan. A month later, location, National Museum of Science in Bonn, Germany. Is it Bonn? In Germany. Sorry if anyone German's watching this. Ooh, it's pretty. I pretend to adjust a strand of hair behind my ear, pressing a button in my earpiece to increase the volume. Oh, is there henchmen again? Boss, I'm in the control room. I've taken care of the security recordings. The police won't find anything of use in any of them. The men are all in their posts and ready to go too. They'll be waiting for your signal. I'll stay here for a little longer to keep an eye on things. Please let me know if you understood. I nod. All right, see you in the auditorium, boss. As an inspiring supervillain, particularly one hoping to join the League, there are two things to be taken into account when it comes to carrying out plans. Visibility and chance of success. Just like there's no point in doing something so uninspired that it barely makes it into the local news, there's no point in getting arrested on national television. Oh, how uncouth. Finding balance is key, and that's exactly why I've chosen Bonn's National Museum of Science as my target. It's a beautiful place, and just like its research centre hosts many important scientists, its vault is home to a lot of rare and expensive equipment. Despite that, under normal circumstances, there won't be anything particularly worth stealing here, but starting today, the museum will be hosting the Schultz-Holt collection of rare minerals, its main piece being the famous Englauge diamond. Englauge, the diamond. Besides being one of the largest cut precious stones known to man, its purity and chemical composition make it one of the most versatile energy conductors in the world. In addition to the exhibit itself, the museum board has also invited Professor Schultz to give a conference at the end of the inauguration party. Schultz is both a geologist and a political activist, and he's greatly respected in both fields. To make sure that no other villain interferes, I told both the League and my uncle that I'd be planting bombs in the museum and holding the guests hostage for ransom. Very few people are willing to risk getting blown up by a first timer, after all. Oh, look at him smiling. He's like, yeah, I tricked them. But actually, my real plan is... Oh, okay. We're either going to steal the diamond or kidnap Professor Schultz. Do my evil pose is our plan. I like all the flowers. They're pretty. We're gonna steal the diamond because it's pretty. Oh no, but if I steal the diamond, I have to pronounce it again. Ah, crud. Okay, we'll kidnap Professor Schultz. As a public figure involved in politics, Schultz's disappearance will be all the news will talk about for as long as he's missing. Kidnappings are hardly my area of expertise, but all things considered, they are pretty straightforward. And it's not like I will have to deal with him for long afterwards in any case. I'm certain that both the Americans and the Russians will be willing to pay a hefty sum to get their hands on him. If I had to guess, I'd say that they'll want to claim that they were the ones that saved him, making the other side look incompetent. Or maybe they'll use the opportunity to get rid of him while the blame falls on someone else. It's a great plan, if I say so myself. If my nerves don't kill me first, that is. Until Schultz's conference begins, there isn't much for me to do except wait. The only reason I got here at the beginning of the inauguration in the first place was in case the henchmen needed me for something. Unfortunately, that also means I've had plenty of time to go over the plan in my head, including all the little details that could go wrong. Don't be nervous, Keegan, you've got this! I hate to admit it, but my uncle was right. Being the mastermind of a plan instead of just another person helping out is a completely different experience. But it doesn't matter. When I join the League, I'll get to tell the story whichever way I want. Nice. If you screw up, you could just lie. None of the boring parts, none of the doubt. Everything was perfect on the first try. In the end, I decide to go grab a drink at the bar while I wait. The The bar is actually more of a counter in one of the corners of the lobby than its own separate place. It's meant for people who want to get something to drink without having to find a place at one of the tables or wait for the servers to take their order. As I approach, the first thing I see is a man surrounded by a small group of people, most of them women. I can't get a good look at him from over here, but every once in a while the whole group erupts in laughter. After the third or so time that it happens, the bartender walks over from behind the counter and says something to them. He probably asked them to either lower their volume or leave, since the group began to disperse right afterwards. Now by himself, the man takes a seat next to another blonde man. He leans back on the chair and begins swinging it back and forth. Hello, random man. Oh, and hello, other man. Ooh, scar. Cool. Okay. We got two men. One's very dapper with his, tux. He's looking smooth. And the other one looks very moody and broody and interesting. No wonder he was surrounded by women. He's pretty handsome. And the man next to him isn't too bad himself either. Ooh, Keegan, get in there! Come on, boy! Definitely a much better view than what I had at the lobby. A moment passes and the man in the tuxedo says something. They exchange a few words, but the expression on the blonde man's face is so unfriendly that they don't really go beyond that. If looks could kill. In any case, I don't have much time to think about it. At that exact moment, the first man turns around, and our eyes meet. I look away to see if he'll do the same, but he doesn't. Instead, I can feel him staring at me until I give up and look back. He makes a gesture at the bartender to order another of whatever he's having. Now, with the additional glass in hand, he approaches, stopping right next to me and leaning against the counter. Ooh, things are getting interesting. Okay, it's called Hunter. Having fun? From his body language and his accent, I'd say he's American. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to do an American accent. This is not gonna go well. From his body language and his accent, I'd say he's American. I wave my hand in a dismissing manner. Not really. Watching the governor try to explain the merits of mineralogy, that word, has been the highlight of my evening so far. Okay, we're not even going to try American because I'm just going to insult people with it. I'm sorry, Hannah, we'll just pretend you're American. These things are usually more lively. Well, as lively as events of these sort of things can get. Last time there was this professor from Columbia. What was his name? Anyway, he's convinced that Schultz's mythology is faulty, so he always ends up causing a ruckus whenever they meet. But this time, the committee has made sure that the guest list is as inoffensive as possible. You didn't hear it from me, of course. Of course. Drink? He raises the glass towards me. I saw him order it, but I didn't see the bartender pour it, so of course I'm not going to accept it. Good idea, Keegan. I shake my head and pick up my own glass, almost empty by now from the counter. No, thank you, I already had one. He shrugs and takes a sip. It's quite good, isn't it? German alcohol is one of the true reasons I'm glad that the Soviets only got to keep half the country. Sorry, half the country. Can't do American. I'm so sorry. And the other one is? Germans! By now it's become clear that he's flirting with me. Whether he's actually doing a good job is a different point altogether. I decide to... We're gonna flirt back, hell yeah! Well, two can play the same game. Let's see him put his money where his mouth is. Of course, one of those things is much more fun than the other. He laughs, puts down one of the glasses and offers me his free hand. I take it and give him a grin in return. The handshake lasts a couple of seconds more than strictly necessary, and instead of simply letting go at the end, he slides his fingers across my palm. Ooh, Hunter. I curl my fingers slightly so that they interlock briefly at the end. That does it. He begins ogling me in what's possibly the least subtle manner known to man. Johns, it's a pleasure to meet you. The pleasure is all mine. Don't take this the wrong way, but you look kind of young for an academic. I'm still an undergrad. I'm hoping for a chance to discuss my thesis with Schultz before I submit it. Smooth, Keegan. Asking Schultz for his opinion about an undergrad thesis? That's quite a high bar you set for yourself. Trust me, you don't even know the half of it. So, what is it about? In simple terms, I'm researching ways to improve the accuracy of the tools used to locate and harvest petroleum deposits. It would make extraction quicker, cheaper, and more environmentally friendly. Right now, it's all theory, but I'm pretty sure that my calculations will lead to it being applicable. That's quite impressive. All the better for me. I like him smart. With a grin, he puts a hand on my shoulder and leans closer to me until his face is practically touching mine. Oh, Hunter. His breath feels hot against my ear and, mixed with the faint smell of alcohol coming from him, is enough to send a shiver down my spine. Maybe we could discuss some of your ideas in private? I'm tempted. So very tempted. But if I miss Schwartz, my thesis supervisor will have my head. I mean, getting laid sounds cool, but he is kind of trying to apply to a supervillain league here. I take a step back and he lets go of my arm. What a shame, but I understand. Next time then? He picks up the glass, chugs down the rest of the drink and winks at me before turning around and walking away. Bye, Hunter! As soon as he's out of my sight, I let out a sigh. Oh, God. If I had been anyone else, this would have ended uglier for him. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not planning to see him again anytime soon. Are you sure about that? There's a buzzing sound coming from one of the nearby speakers, and I turn my attention to it. First call! Please proceed to take your seats. The conference will begin in 15 minutes. When the announcement is done, I head towards the auditorium. Other than the first 2 rows, which have been reserved for politicians and the press, the seats aren't numbered. Terribly inconvenient for people that would rather secure a good place without having to enter early or wait too long in line for it. On the other hand, it's perfect for someone like me who would rather not have a name attached to their tickets. Smooth, nice. When one of the ushers takes my ticket, I recognise him as one of my uncle's men, just like the henchman said. He's got it all planned out. I'm impressed. He directs me towards a free seat at the corner of one of the middle rows. Perfect. Nothing would ruin a dramatic entrance like having to ask people to stand up so I can get to the stage. Once I'm at the seat, it quickly becomes obvious why no one had taken it yet. Sitting next to me is the blonde man from the hall, reading the program with an expression on his face just as unfriendly as the one he'd had back there. So not Hunter, the other guy. Excuse me, is the seat taken? He looks at me, shakes his head, and goes back to reading without a single word. He's tall. I like his green tie. Under any other circumstances, I wouldn't care, but come on, he talked to the other man at the bar, and I don't get more than a side glance. Oh, Keegan, you're still pretty. It's entirely possible for him to just be some regular guy with bad social skills and poor German, but he didn't even attempt to answer in English either. I'm slightly worried that Keegan's supposed to be German, and I'm doing this English accent. Oh well, I'm committed to it now. I decide to give my gut feeling a try and, leaning closer to him and lowering my voice so that no one else will hear, I begin to speak to him in Russian. Oh God, now I have to do a Russian accent. Oh no. I've heard the Russians have a lot of trouble getting travel permits nowadays, even those who've never been to the Soviet Union. I can't even imagine how hard it must have been for actual Soviets to get out of their country. That gets his attention, enough to put down the program and turn to face me. He looks like he's assessing me and trying to intimidate me at the same time. If I'm completely honest with myself, why am I interested in talking with him? Because he insists on ignoring me, or because there's something suspicious about him, or option number 3, because he's hot? I think there's something suspicious about him. Yeah, he was talking with Hunter. Let's see what's going on here. It's not uncommon to find Russian expatriates in high-profile events, but in general, they're pretty easy to recognise. This man isn't one. I went through a lot of trouble to make sure no one would interrupt me today, so if there's something out of place about him, I need to know. Sergey. Okay. Oh God, Russian accent. Me neither, but I imagine it's just as difficult to find someone that would teach you Russian on this side of the world. That probably isn't anything like a Russian accent, I'm sorry. His accent is very thick, even in Russian. Thankfully, I speak the language fairly well, otherwise I would have regretted my decision as soon as he opened his mouth. As with all things, it's a matter of knowing the right people. Speaking the language won't get you arrested, though. That depends on how you use it. And how do you use it? Who are you? No one of consequence, as long as you don't get in my way. We exchange a look of suspicion before he goes back to reading, not without hesitation. Seems like I'll have to keep an eye on him. Third call, please remain in silence for the duration of the conference. We'd like to remind you that photography is restricted to authorised press. The lights of the room begin to dim until they turn off completely, and the auditorium's only remaining illumination are the spotlights above the stage. A man in a suit appears from the left side of the stage, followed by Professor Schultz. He stops at the podium, and soon any hopes of conversation are drowned by the audience's applause. Please welcome Professor Hans Schultz, head of the Schultz-Holt Foundation. There's another round of applause, this time much louder. After a couple of seconds pass, Schultz holds his hand up and... He holds his hand up, and the whole room grows quiet. Slowly, the floor next to him begins to open, and everyone watches in awe as the case in which the diamond is kept raises from it. I had seen the pictures of it before, of course, but it doesn't compare to seeing it in person. Oh my god. German. What does German sound like? As you all know, the encolage is among the rarest gemstones in the world. That is not German. Why? I would not have picked this if I knew there were so many different accents. Oh no! Flawless both in its surface and its interior, it allows both heat and electricity to be conducted with minimal dispersion up to... I pressed the button on the side of my watch. I couldn't risk bringing too much equipment on my person, but I managed to fit both a communicator and a small laser into my watch. At my signal, the doors burst open, and the henchmen appear, while the ones that had been posing as ushers hurry to lock the doors behind them. My uncle only ended up lending me about half a dozen of them, but since the people inside have no way to tell, there are more than enough. There are whispers of confusion at first, but the room goes completely quiet when Scholl slams his hand against the podium. What is the meaning of this? Security! Get these people out of here! Was that German? Was that Russian? Was that some strange country in between? I stand up and I'm escorted to the stage by that one henchman whose name I should probably know by now. While we walk, he goes ahead and hands me the control of the bombs. It's mostly for show, since we only wired enough bombs to mess up some of the less important rooms slightly, while the rest are decoys set to release smoke. Of course, they don't know that yet. There's been a slight change of plans, Professor. As I take the podium, I put down the control in front of me and I signal the henchman to restrain Schultz. They both get off the stage and he leads the professor towards the side of the auditorium. Keegan is feeling himself. Look at him doing his little speech. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. If you cooperate and do exactly as you are told, no one will get hurt. When you look back to this moment in a few years, you'll realize that it was the most important day of your lives. Scientific achievements, political careers, everything you've done will pale in comparison to this instant. And that is because today, you'll become part of history. You'll have the honor of witnessing the birth of one of the greatest supervillains known to man. Dr. Cyclops. Keegan, that's what you went with, Dr. Cyclops? Okay, Dr. Cyclops. It's growing on me. As of right now, you also have the honor of being my hostages. Hopefully the government values your lives. I'm briefly interrupted by the sound of talking coming from amongst the seats. I decide to ignore it and continue. Enough to pay the... When it happens again, I stop speaking and begin to look over the crowd, searching for the source of the interruption. He's doing his big moment here, people. Let him do it. Most of the guests have either a look of fear or discomfort on their faces, and some of them even shake their heads when they notice me looking at them. What do I have henchmen for if they can't even keep people from talking at the same time as me? Finally, I notice that the henchman is out of place, standing at the end of a row rather than at his place next to Schwartz. He seems to be arguing with someone. I step down from the stage to get a better look, and I recognize the other person as the man from the lobby. What are you doing? Sit down! I'm going to the bathroom, unless you want me to get sick all over the floor. He stands up and gives a few steps forward. Actually, it's more of an awkward stumbling. He looks really drunk. Hunter! Hey, I said you aren't going anywhere. The henchman grabs his arm to stop him. Suddenly the man turns around and punches him square on the nose, knocking him out cold in the process. Oh, poor henchman we don't know the name of. His smarmy little face. He's so proud of himself. Stepping around the henchman's unconscious body, he puts a hand inside his jacket and takes out a gun. Okay, things are escalating. At first I'm amused by the idea of getting shot by an over-eager drunk, but he manages to point it right at me just fine. Honey, he's pretending, darling. Agent Hunter, Global. You're all under arrest. Shit. Okay. People begin to turn to look at him, whispering to each other until the crowd's attention is divided between the two of us. Meanwhile, none of the henchmen move, unsure what to do. Bless him. The only security on site was supposed to be the museum's guard, and some of the local police stationed outside. There was nothing to make us think that an agent of Global would be here, let alone armed. Honey, if you're going to be a supervillain, this is part of the deal. You have to have backup plans on backup plans on backup plans. The henchmen could deal with him through sheer numbers alone, but I need them to keep control of the crowd. If everyone begins to panic, it's not going to be good for any of us. I decide to try and bluff, so I shrug and laugh it off. Nice try, but you wouldn't risk a shootout in a room full of civilians, or for me to blow this place sky high. I pick up the control and put my index finger on the big red button in the middle of it. You've got to have a big red button. See this? My men have put bombs all around the museum. One false move, and I'll push it. With you still inside? No, I don't think so. As for your henchmen, my aim is pretty good, and something tells me none of them want to be the one that gets their boss shot. Guess we'll have to see who's faster. Get him! The henchmen are getting ready to fire when I'm blinded by a flash of white light. Out of instinct, I drop the control and raise my arm to cover my good eye, but the movement makes me lose my balance and I end up falling back. Keegan! Grenade! Everyone get down! Hold your fire! My vision is blurry, so much that I barely see the second flash of light when it goes off. I hear the people begin to scream, but the noise sounds distant, as if I was in another room altogether. It's not much of a relief, but at least that means they were flashing grenades rather than fragmentation ones. Yeah, I'd rather have, like, a blinding flash than, like, people blowing up! It takes a couple of seconds for my eyesight to come back completely, and a couple more for me to regain enough strength to be able to stand up. I look around. Half the henchmen are on the floor, covering their ears in pain. The other half still look too confused to do anything. Upon realizing that no one is blocking their way anymore, the people in seats begin to run towards the exits in panic, pushing each other and screaming. Oh, this is all going horribly wrong. By the time the henchmen try to regain control of the situation, the whole room has descended into chaos. In front of me, Agent Hunter points his gun in my direction and begins to approach, or at least he's trying to. His hand is shaking so much that it's obvious that he's just as disorientated as I am. I frown. If it wasn't him, then who? He looks at me, then at the floor, and stops. I look down as well, and realize why. It's the control! He hurls himself forward and grabs it. I take the opportunity to kick the gun out of his other hand, but he holds onto my leg and pulls me down with him. We both end up on the floor, trying to wrestle the control out of each other's hands. While Hunter may be stronger, right now I'm the one in better condition, so I manage to hold my own against him. We keep rolling around on the floor until I manage to flip him over and pin him down. Get him, Keegan! Wow. Has someone ever told you that this is your best angle? Shut up and give it back! As we continue to struggle for the control, I notice someone get on the stage out of the corner of my eye. I turn my head and see the blonde man from the lobby walk up to the diamond's case and lift it up. Sergey is stealing the diamond? Come on, man. It's a brief distraction, but it's enough to give Hunter the upper hand he needs to push me off him. When I fall back, the control is sent flying into the air, and Hunter and me stare at it as it lands right on the detonator. Uh-oh. Well, shit. Things are about to get explosive. That was awful. I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna end there because I'm not sure honestly how long this game is. All the information I found was like how long it takes to complete every path. So I don't want to make this video like 2 hours long in case that's how long it is. So we're just gonna stop here on this awful cliffhanger because I'm a terrible person. Supervillain. So thank you for playing Blind Men with me. It's available on itch.io and on Steam. I think if you buy through itch, you also get a Steam key. Don't quote me on that, but I'll put links to both in the description if you're interested in purchasing it. But this is really fun. I'm liking this. It's a bit kind of like Man from U.N.C.L.E., Bond, but with extra gay, because we're not going to pretend that those were straight. So they're extra gay. And yeah, I'm enjoying. So come back and join me again? I hope so. Bye for now, my lovelies. Bye!